Hey everyone, welcome to my art stream. I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be doing a watercolor. So we started earlier in the week with a flower study, and we just studied different types of flowers. One of the flowers we did study was a lily, and so today we're going to be doing a watercolor with a lily. Now, if you caught my start screen, that told you some of the supplies we need, but I'm also going to go over those supplies. I've got everything right here to show you what we're going to be using today. Okay, for a reference photo, because I think it's important for you to know, you can watch me and follow along with me, and you'll probably get the same thing. It's so following me is not a problem, but it is good to look at a reference photo. So what I've done is, if you look at I am lifting my finger. There we go. Still can't get this coordination right, but if you look at my screen, you'll see down at the bottom a Discord link. Now, you can't click on that. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but you can either you can copy the, not copy and paste it, sorry. You can type that into your browser, or if you look farther down on my page, there's a Discord button. That should be the link. That should take you to my server with the invite. So if you go over there and join my Discord, I post the reference photo every time I do a stream. I post that beforehand so that you, as the viewer, can get an idea of what it is we're going to be drawing and have something to look at. Now, I've done this particular, the lilies, I've done this one before, but it was a very long time ago. So it's almost like looking at this lesson plan for the first time. So bear with me, if I'm have any stuttering. I don't think I've done this one since like 2017 maybe. So it's been a while. All right, let's go over the supplies. So first thing you'll notice is I've got my paints here. Now, we're not going to actually be using the phthalo blue today, so I'm just going to take that out so it doesn't get confusing. So I've got a red, a yellow, a blue, and a brown. That's really the colors you need. If you have a red, yellow, blue, and brown, you can do today's stream. Even if, let me see, I've got somewhere, well, I don't know what I did with them, but I have, the little tray of like Crayola colors, where it comes like in the little circular pods. That would be totally fine. In fact, I am reusing colors that I just let dry. So I'm going to be, the great thing about watercolor is you can reuse your colors because even though it's dry, just adding water will reconstitute it. So it's totally fine for you to use watercolors that are in a pan. That's what that's called. And each of those circles are called pods or wells. However, if you were going to buy art watercolors, which you can, that gives you a little bit more mixing capability. If you wanted to buy art watercolors, the colors I have are phthalo crimson, cadmium yellow medium. This is an ultramarine blue, and this is burnt umber. The one that I put away is a phthalo blue, and sometimes we use this as a warm version of the ultramarine blue. This is a cool blue, this is a warm blue, but we're just not using the warm blue today. Okay, for the brushes, occasionally I use two brushes, but today we're just using one, and that's a size 6 round brush. Round just means that it's pointed at the top. A palette knife just in case, but I don't use palette knives with watercolors nearly as often as I do with acrylic, but we'll just have that here. A pencil, because watercolor is a lot drawing in prepping for the painting, and I'm going to go over why we do that here in a second, but I just want to finish up the supplies. As I said, a palette of some kind, or if you have the pre-made palette, that's got a built-in palette in the lid, and a piece of watercolor paper. Now, I get mine from this cold press watercolor paper. 9x12 is the size. I like Strathmore as a brand. They're a pretty good brand, but there's a couple other different kinds of brands you can use, and they're all fine. when you use watercolor paper, there are two sides. You can't really tell in the stream, but one side, if you feel it, is smooth, and the other side has a rough texture. We're always going to be using the rough side. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to get rid of this book here. And let's see. You also need some paper towels, which I keep handy. And watercolor isn't as staining as acrylic is, but oh, you can see there's some, this is from my favorite game called The Witness, and sometimes I have to make notes, especially if screens flash or things like that. So that's my notes, because I was just playing it recently. So this is from the other day. I'm going to use this exact same, let's see. Just put down some paper or something. Even though watercolor is not as destructive as acrylic paint, because acrylic paint, once it dries, it's there. It will love you forever, even though you might not love it forever. But watercolor is not as bad because it's water soluble, so you can get it up a lot easier. But just in case, you know, why not just be safe? And oh, that's nice. My camera decided to refocus, so there we go. This is actually going to be an up and down painting today, which is called portrait. So you've got landscape and portrait, and we're doing portrait. All right. So I told you I was going to talk a little bit about why we use a pencil. So the deal is that watercolor is additive, meaning if you paint a layer of red, you wait for it to dry, you paint another layer of red, it's going to be darker red. It's not going to just paint red over red. Whereas acrylic, if you paint, or how about I'll give you even this. Say you paint red, then you go back and you decide to paint blue. The color you're going to end up with is purple. It's going to add those two colors together. Whereas with acrylic, if you paint blue over red, you just have blue because it layers. That has to do with the transparency. Watercolor is considerably more transparent because it is well, I mean, because acrylic's water soluble too. So I guess it doesn't necessarily have to do with it being mixed with water. It is a transparent paint. So what that means is that we have to be very careful about how we plan our drawing. So we sketch things out with a pencil first, very lightly, because the pencil will still show up through your watercolor because it is so transparent. So we want to very lightly sketch where we want things to go. Then we can start applying the watercolor. You just have to do a little bit more upfront planning with watercolor because you can't erase it really either. You know, once it's down there, it's there. And a lot of times we're using the white of our paper as our white. So we don't want to accidentally paint somewhere we didn't mean to, things like that. So planning is important. We are going to be planning our lilies today. And so that's why we need a pencil. So you don't necessarily need a pencil for oil or acrylic. And usually you can just use your paint as your pencil, like if you're sketching out where you want things to go, because you can paint over it and it covers it. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. Now, we drew lilies the other day. This is going to be just slightly different than what we did the other day, but it's similar enough that hopefully you'll remember the structure of the lilies. So we're going to start with our lily we've got two lilies. We've got one that's kind of I'm just drawing a general circle. I'm going to hold this up so you can see that. It's very light circle right there. There's one there, and then there's going to be one right about here. Okay? So one here, one there. Just kind of catty-cornered each other. This is going to be the basis of, let me see, I can probably do this one a little bit darker. There. So this is the basis of our flowers. So our first flower, we're going to work on the one up here. This flower, we're going to have, I'm going to start with a petal that kind of comes out this way. It's got that arch. It's going to loop under and kind of come down like that. Now, I always try to look at the shapes of things. I will talk about this stuff more in my drawing classes because drawing is a little bit more of a study. Whereas this, we are doing a study of the lilies, but the study is more of the watercolor itself and how it behaves than it is of the shape of the plant. So we did that on Tuesday, and I highly recommend you, if you have not watched Tuesday's stream, which was a drawing class doing a study of flowers, I highly recommend you watch that because that was a good stream that explained the shapes of flowers and how to look at it. So for today, I'm not going to talk too much about the shapes. I mean, I might say a couple of little things, little gems that you might get. Okay, so also today too, we're doing more general shapes because you'll find that with watercolor, it's a little bit more happenstance where things go, and it's not as imperative that everything be in the exact right place. With drawing, everything's shaded, you've got texture and shadows and highlights, and with watercolor, it's meant, we want it to look kind of amorphous and not exact, and that's what makes watercolor beautiful. So we're not as worried about the exact structure, it's more the idea of the lily. This is why watercolor does really well if you want to do impressionist style paintings. So I've got this petal down here. For some reason my camera keeps focusing, so hopefully, let me see if I get a little light here. That doesn't seem to be helping. Hold on. Let me try this. Oops. Hold on. It's going to take a second to focus. Let's see if it'll come back into focus though. Okay. I'm going to have to try to figure out how to turn the autofocus off on this camera. Well, anyway, thank you for bearing with me on that. All right, so we've got another petal that's going to come down in the front towards us. So this has, I don't know if any of you remember that there was like this little heart-shaped, I think that was on the lily. But anyway, like kind of a heart shape. So this one is going to be like the right, like hump, top hump of the heart. Okay, stop focusing, camera. And it's just going to come down. So you've got like this, you know, kind of elongated heart shape. We've got to do something about okay. Really wanted to stop focusing, guys. I'm sorry that it's not going to be too much of a problem with it focusing once I'm doing the color, because watercolor looks a little out of focus anyway. But right now, you know, I want you guys to see clear lines of what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to go to the back. This one is going to come up and it's going to be more square looking at the top because it's going behind, so we don't actually see that. All right, and then we're going to have two more petals here. We're going to have one that comes off of this one. And then we'll have one more that's going to come over and down. So this is going to be our first lily. So I'm going to let you guys catch up there and hopefully get this to stop. Maybe if I hold this up a little, make that easier to see. All right. So while you guys are doing that, I'm going to start looking at this other lily. All right, let's see. Let's do Okay, we're going to start with a petal coming this way. So we've got a petal. It's going to have a little bit of an indentation where the lily is coming over the side. It's like back behind here. We can't see it. So that's one petal. I'm going to add a little more light and see if that helps get it to stop. I wonder if it has something to do with having a white background. I wonder if I take that away. Let me see if it stops. Trying to do that. Like, because it's got two whites that it's trying to focus on there. We'll see if that helps any. Doesn't look... Thanks for holding it up. It's almost impossible to see as you draw. Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you, Teacher Margot. I will try to hold that up. I almost need something elevated. Let's see what I have. Hold on. I have a box here I could use. I just got a new modem. Let's see if that's a little better. It puts it a little closer. Okay. I'm going to do another petal that's coming down. Now this one is heart-shaped, but it's not going to be pointy at the bottom because it's going to be hidden behind a leaf. So we're not drawing the leaf in yet. Let me know if this is a little easier to see, that I've moved it a little closer. Okay, I'm going to have another petal coming up. And this one is also going behind. So it's got a little bit of a square look to it. Okay, so at least it helps a little bit. And then, let's see. So we'll have a petal back here. Another one that's going to be sort of similar to that. And we'll do another guy that's kind of coming down here. Behind, and we're going to have another one over here that's also behind. Like maybe another one that's, these are a little pointy. Like that. All right, so just in case, I'll hold that up. Actually, I don't like how big this one is. I'm just going to really lightly, you have to be very light about. I want to make that one a little fatter at the bottom but skinnier at the top. Okay. Now we do have one more lily in the picture. It is not bloomed, so it's still in its bud form. And it's going to be right back here. And lilies, when they haven't bloomed, are like this elongated oval. They're like kind of an elliptical shape. All right. Now we need to put our let's let's see, we've got stamens and pistils. I forgot to look that up and see which was which. I'm going to erase out my circles. You want to be careful when you're erasing because you don't want to, you just want to be gentle so that it doesn't mess up the teeth of your paper. All of that little all the little texture that's on your watercolor paper it's called teeth. Well, it's tooth. So I suppose you have more than one tooth. Maybe tooth is the plural in this case. Okay. So we've got that middle part of the flower. Whether it's the stamen or the pistil, I cannot remember. I think the stamen are the little, like all the little ones. And the pistil is the one in the middle, I think. So that's just elongated there. And these, again, don't make these very dark. I'm making mine darker for you to be able to see them. You do not want yours to be very dark. I think this is just the nature of me teaching on a stream, is that mine are always just going to be a little bit dark. I'm always going to see my pencil marks. That's just the way it is, you know, just the way it is, because I really need you guys to be able to see this. So I'm going to hold this up a little bit. Okay, now that we have this, now we're going to go ahead and start painting. So we don't need our pencil anymore. So you can go ahead and put that away. Now I'm going to take this box and put it to the side because now we're going to be just doing general colors, so it doesn't need to be as exact. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually make a really pale green, and that's going to be our background. So we're going to paint our background first. Let's do this. Let me see if I already have something going on here. Oh, you know what I need is some water. So luckily I have some drinking water here. I'm just going to pour a little bit because I forgot to get some. So you need water. That's important for watercolor. Hello, Sarah. Okay. I will also take a drink too. Good thing I had it around, you know. Good thing. All right. So when I was pouring it, a little bit actually dropped into my yellow, and I need my yellow. So I'm going to wet my brush first. So just to show you, your brush is usually a little stiff when you first put it in. So you want to just push it against the bottom like that, and that will get water. And you're going to see some bubbles come up because it's actually getting into some of the air pockets in there. Okay. So we're getting some water. Now you can either, if you have a tube, then you just put a little bit of yellow in there, and you don't need to really add too much water because it's already in liquid form. Since mine is dry, you do still want to add water, just not very much. Since mine is completely dry, I'm going to add a little bit of water. And what you do is you get water on your brush, and then you just rest your brush against the top of the well. Now, if you're doing this using watercolors in the pods or the wells, like the little pan watercolors, that's what that's called, pan. You want to do the same thing, just you're going to have to either drip it right over or just the very, very edge so that it doesn't get on the paint itself. I don't want any paint on my brush. All right, so I'm mixing this up. And you should get a yellow soup. You want it to be pretty soupy. You don't want to see through the water in any way. Okay. So we'll get that soupy. Now we're going to get our ultramarine blue soupy. Now I don't have enough ultramarine here, so I'm going to add a little bit more. So here's how you get water soupy. Here's how you get your watercolor soupy when you're putting down paint like this. So you kind of do the same thing where you put the water on the side. And I'm just like putting it on the side and letting it drip down. Maybe one more. You don't need to put as much. Then you start agitating it, but you're going to agitate it from the side. You're not going to touch the paint directly. It takes a little tiny bit longer. Not much, but a little. But what you're doing is you're getting some of the paint to come out into the water. And you just want to make it soupy to the point where you can't see through the color anymore. Okay, that's pretty good. So, let me get a paper towel. So I'm just gonna, I rinse my brush. Going to get some of the extra water off. All right, I'm going to pick up some of my blue and put it directly in the middle. And I'm not touching, again, I'm not touching the paint exactly directly. I'm just picking it up from the side. So I squiggle a little in the water and squiggle a little in the middle. Squiggle a little in the water, squiggle a little in the middle. And that will get some heavy blue in there. Okay. Now, I'm rinsing my brush off. Actually, probably I'm going to need more than that. But squiggle a little in the yellow. Squiggle a little in the middle. Squiggle a little in the yellow. I'm not touching it directly to the blue. It's like your kids when they're in the back seat and they're messing with each other and I'm not touching you, but they're really, really close. That's kind of what you're doing. You want to get close to it, but you just don't want to directly touch it. Just get it really close. And I'm going to get a little bit more and then mix my colors together. And you should get like a nice kind of pukey green. That is what we want. We want pukey green. Okay. I'm getting my brush wet, but I'm not washing the pukey green off because I'm going to start putting water down in the background and it's got some of my pukey green on it, and that's okay. Look, it almost looks yellow. What is causing that shadow? Okay, that was my water. Let me get that shadow out of there. So what we're doing, we're just getting pure water and putting it down, but because our brush had a little bit of the pukey green on it from mixing. Okay, see, this is a little bit of this is getting on my desk. So I really need that paper. Let's see if I do the paper like directly underneath, maybe. Maybe it won't do that. All right, so here's the thing. You're going to get pretty close to the flower. It's okay if you go over a little bit, but you just want to get it wet. We're just getting the whole thing wet. Just everything but the flowers is what we're doing. It's the whole background. So I'm getting the whole background wet. What this is called a wash. We're just doing a clear wash right now rather than there's no color in our wash. And we're preparing the surface to take color. Now, a lot of times what you can do is look at your paper from a different angle. And by looking at it from a different angle, you can see what's shiny and what's not, and like where you need to get more color, more water rather, not more color. We're not putting color just yet. Now, because this stuff dries pretty quickly, the water, I'm going to just get it started, and then I'm going to pick up some of my icky green and just like start putting it down and let it kind of just flow where it goes. You might need to push it a little bit into some places, but it's okay if it doesn't go everywhere. And if it's not moving around, get some water. Pick up some water and make it move. You show that green who's boss. It's you, in case you were wondering. It's fine with the paper since you drew darker lines. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Teacher Margot, for the comment. I don't know how long ago you made that comment, but so I apologize if I'm answering very late, but thank you. Okay. Pick up some green. My green's not wanting to move around. I'm just not getting enough water out here, probably. You can use a larger brush. If for some reason this isn't moving, the size 6 isn't moving the brush around the way you want it. The paint, rather. I'm using a lot of words today, but they're not all the correct words. So that's fun. All right. Getting wet. Adding color. We might have to mix a little bit more color. I had a feeling that I didn't mix enough. But guess what? When we mix more color, it's going to be slightly different. Maybe we'll be a little more blue or a little more yellow. I'm voting for a little more blue if I can help it. And that's okay because in watercolor, our background especially, but it's supposed to be kind of, you know, like I said, amorphous. It's not supposed to necessarily have a shape. So it's okay if it's not perfect. That's what I love, love, love about watercolor. It's also the most frustrating thing to me, and I'm not very good at it because I am Little Miss Perfect. I try to make everything a certain way, but you know, watercolor forces me to be more open. And anything that can force me to be more open has to be a good thing, right? You know, exposure, man. We need to be exposed to different ideas. It's what makes us grow. So, you know, watercolor makes me grow as an artist, so I'm going to continue pushing through even though I'm not so great at it. I'm okay at it. I'm okay. We'll say that. But, you know, that's one thing that I hope I get across to everyone. If you're joining me and, you know, maybe you're like, oh, well, I'm, you know, mine aren't as good as Miss Sarah. I go by Miss Sarah in my my face-to-face live classes because most of my students are pretty young, like, you know, 7, 8 years old. So, you know, yeah, yours probably isn't going to look as good as mine. You know why? Because I've been doing this for 30 years. But also, you have to remember that there are things I'm not good at too, in art. You know, there are new techniques that I learn that I don't know well right away, you know, and that's every artist goes through that. So you're not alone just because you're starting this for the first time. Don't get discouraged that your painting doesn't look exactly like how you want it because, you know, frankly, you're just going to get better. It's just the nature of it. The more you do it, the better you get. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years. So yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm okay. You know, I mean, I'm not the best watercolor artist. There are really amazing watercolor artists, but watercolor's not my forte anyway. You know, so it's not like I'm heartbroken that I'm not good. It just gives me something to do, right? It gives me something to practice at. So this one I mixed, it's clearly darker, right? I mean, that's clearly darker than the one before, and that's okay. I like that. You know, we want it to be kind of different in different places. So I've got a darker green going on down at the bottom here. I'll probably bring that up into this other color just so it blends a little bit more. So I'm getting this wet. Now, if you are using watercolor paper that is from a book, that's from like the notebook like I showed you, sometimes it has what's called sizing on it. The sizing helps keep it protected, and it helps keep it together in like a nice, neat stack. But unfortunately, sizing is a pain to try to paint with, because what happens is your water doesn't actually penetrate the paper. It doesn't stick to it. It just sits on top. Now, eventually it will break through the sizing. So sometimes you just have to work it a little bit more. You have to just keep moving the brush back and forth over the sizing. And it will actually eventually break down that sizing. It's just a little bit of an annoyance. Now, if you buy watercolor paper from, like in large sheets, like there's brands like Arches or Reeves that make really heavy paper that you can use for watercolor paper. That is, sometimes it has sizing on it, but sometimes it doesn't. You can get it without the sizing. And what I usually do is I cut those. I buy the large sheets and then I cut them into smaller sheets. That's what I used to do in school. It's a little cheaper that way. Not cheaper than the book. The book is the cheapest way to go. It is by going to Walmart or a craft store and buying a book of watercolor paper is pretty inexpensive. You kind of can't beat that on price. But, you're getting a quality thing too. Like the quality is not as high. This does not have to be smooth. So you notice if you look at mine, it's very splotchy. And that's okay. Now, I want to work some of this green up into here. I like this green color quite a bit, but it is very, very more on the blue side than the yellow side. So I'm just coming up here and adding some to my yellow. I put water on it first. Once we get the pink in there, it's not going to be very noticeable, but I just want to go ahead and take care of it now. I actually kind of like it. So in art, there's something called composition, and that is when you're considering the overall, like the big picture of the picture. So composition is when I'm looking at like, where are my flowers going to be located? How is my color moving around on the page? And in this particular case, I like that our color is actually lighter up at the top, because what that does is it creates a rise. It actually makes everything kind of rise towards the top, and it draws the eye up. It creates movement. So that's something we learn in design. We learn, when I took design classes, we learn all of that stuff. And those are called principles of design. And that's just like, what happens when you create a zigzag line that goes across the page? Well, or arrows, for example. I mean, an arrow is a pointer, yes, but if you put something that's shaped like an arrow or is pointing a certain way, like a, kind of like a greater than sign, say, it makes your eye want to go in the direction of the arrow. So it's like little tricks that help trick the viewer's mind. So in this particular case, having the lighter color at the top is actually pretty interesting. I've got a little area over here that is a little tiny bit light. So I'm just going to add a little bit more color. I'm almost out of my green again. So you can either mix more green, or in my case, I'm pretty happy. I'm just going to leave it like this. Here's an area where I had some sizing issues, so it didn't completely stick. So I've got to work it just a little bit more with my brush. Okay. I'm pretty happy with how this looks as far as backgrounds go. I'll let you continue working on yours. All right. Let's see. Excuse me. Oh. All right. So let's get some water. We're going to do well, let's do this. Actually, let's go ahead and do our leaves. So what I'm going to do that similar thing that we did. I'm going to pick up some more blue, but this time it's going to be quite a bit darker. We're not going to put nearly as much yellow, and we're not going to put as much water. So I'm getting a little bit of direct paint here. I'm going to rinse my brush off before I pick up the yellow. Pick up that yellow, just really swirl it around in there. And that should give us a nice dark color. Now, because we didn't put very much water in there, then what's going to happen is it will it's going to be more concentrated when we put it on our paper. All right. So we're going to paint a couple of leaves. So I'm going to do one here. I'm just doing like kind of an S shape. And then I'm going to come around and shape on the other side like that. And it's okay to just let the paint go. You don't have to smooth it out or anything. It's going to dry the way it dries, and that's actually perfect. We want that. But see how it's considerably darker because I didn't add very much water. Water actually makes your colors lighter in watercolor. So we don't add white like we do in acrylic. We just add water. So I'm going to have another leaf that comes over here that's actually going to curve around. It's going to be fat towards the top of the flower, towards the petal side. And then it's going to, and it's okay if it's like crinkly and like you get a couple of, your lines aren't perfectly straight or anything like that, because again, it's watercolor. It's supposed to be kind of loose. I'm going to do another one here. Again, I'm going to make kind of an S shape. And then come around and meet that. I'm just coloring that in. I'm going to pick up a little bit more. Maybe another one coming out here. And I'm just picking up more paint because I want them to be dark. All right. So I'm going to do some down here. We're going to give the illusion of stems. So I'm going to have a line here. And then kind of come off from that line. Looks like a flag. A little. I'll pick up a little bit of water to move that one around because that's a pretty big leaf. Let's see. All right, now, remember how I said we were going to have a leaf here? It's way different mixing colors from your kind of paint. The colors are way off. Well, okay, so your kind of paint, I know what paint you're using. Are you using the Crayola? I think that was the brand. If you're using that palette, what you want to do is add just a tiny bit of red to your green. Because ultramarine blue, so here's the two different blues. What you're using is this kind of blue. It's a little bit lighter blue. So it's going to make your greens very Kelly green, like that bright St. Patrick's Day green. We want it to be cooler. How you cool that down is make it closer to purple. So you can add a little bit of purple to it. And in fact, you could just mix straight with the purple. You could just be mixing yellow and purple, would be fine. Just like a tiny dab of blue would make it more green than brown. But you can also add just a touch of red to the green that you get, and that's going to brown it up just a tiny bit, just to give you this more olivey color. Try that and see if that helps. Thank you for mentioning that, because it's true. If anybody is using those pre-made palettes, those don't always have two different versions of blue. So the blue you're using, I'm pretty sure, is a warm blue. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this leaf in here in the front. So it's going to have a heart shape. It's going to come down. Like this. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue and just throw some blue in here in places. I might do a little line of blue there. I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of yellow and plop a little bit of yellow like right here at the top of that leaf. Let's see, maybe a little yellow here. Some yellow there. I'm going to do a little yellow in here. Just right at the edge of that. Maybe a little yellow over here on this side of this leaf. This is where it really gets interesting, because it's mixing. All of my stuff is still wet. But like, look at that leaf. Like, look how much more interesting that leaf is now. Just by, adding a little bit of yellow. Okay, I'm going to pick up my green again. I'm going to do a leaf right here, kind of in the corner. Like that. Oh, I added a little bit too much blue there. So what I'm going to do, pick some up with my brush and rinse my brush. And that will help. And then I'll dab just a tiny bit of yellow to it. And then I'm going to move that around a little bit. So I'm essentially mixing my color directly on the paper. Now let's see. Where else do I have? I've got a little leaf coming out here. I think I missed some leaves somewhere. That's okay. That one I'm going to add a little yellow to too. And let's see, what else? All right, now here's what I'm going to do. We've got our dark color. We're going to add more water to it. Add water. Teacher Margot, did my suggestion help any with your paint? With getting the correct colors? If I was right on that, hopefully it did. So now we're going to start doing some background leaves. So what I'm doing is I'm just making shapes, like kind of oval shapes in the background that we're going to be giving the appearance of leaves that are like kind of behind. I was right. The paper is too wet and the paint's going wild. Okay. Okay. So what you can do, honestly, is you can take like anything. Like let's say I feel like I have too much paint going on here. You can take and just pick some up. Then if you want to smooth things out, you can do that with water. So you can take your paper towel and just apply it directly, pick up some of that water, and you can always go and smooth things back out. All right, so I'm coming in behind here. I've got some leaves that are kind of coming out. Now remember, everything's additive, so I'm putting this directly on top of the color in the background, and so it's just making it look like a darker version of that color. Let's see, I've got like a little leaf that's coming over here. Maybe a leaf that's coming up here. I'm just like putting in some like squiggly shapes kind of in the background. Let's see, I've got a leaf coming up here. I'm starting to run out of that color. I'm going to have to make that color again. Yeah, if ever you're not happy with a color and you're going to remix it, I would highly recommend taking your paper towel, picking up whatever water is on your paper, and kind of starting over a little bit. You're still going to see a little bit of it behind, but it won't be as bad. That way you don't have like crazy amounts of water like just going everywhere, because yes, that would be very distracting. So I've got another little leaf up here. Maybe a little guy peeking out there. Hey, little leaf. I've got this tomato plant that I just got that I'm trying to take care of, and I talk to it every day. Because my plants are my babies too, just like my animals. And this one's actually responding well to me talking to it, so that's cool. Because usually they don't. I do not have a green thumb at all. I'm quite convinced that my plants get tired of me talking to them, and it's entirely possible that they choose death over talking to me. I feel like that sometimes. But I love them, and this one seems to be responding well. So maybe it's just certain kinds of plants. I do okay with cacti. So maybe it's just plants that like neglect, even though I take care of them. It's not like I'm not taking care of them, but you know, I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to do like some plant shapes generally back here. I don't know if I like that. I haven't decided yet. I do know I want some additional plant shapes right here, but I'm trying. I wanted to let this mostly dry before I put it in. So because I want it to look like there's another leaf going on back behind this leaf. But I didn't, you know, if it's still wet, you want to give it a little bit of time to dry before coming in behind it. Otherwise the paint colors will mix, like the water will mix together. So it's funny because now I have, okay, I particularly like mirrors. So my mom just gave me this mirror she just got from Mexico. Ta-da! Woo! That's very bright. I don't want to... Okay, so she got me this mirror. You guys just got to see all my peripherals there. Well, I've got it hanging so I can see myself while I'm working at my computer. But now it's a little bit in the way of things like my screen in parts. Like I can't see the very upper right corner of my screen, which is where things like, you know, minimize and exit and stuff like that is. So that's fun. So I'm going to have to rethink the location of that mirror. Oops, sorry for the noise. I don't know how loud that came across. I've got a kind of a spotlight that I can shine over here, but it's right next to my microphone, and it's got like I've got one of those like filter covers so that it's not direct light. Okay. I'm feeling pretty confident about like our general background going on-ness here. We're exactly at 1 hour of stream, so thanks for joining me and sticking with me for the hour. I'm kind of letting things dry before we move on to the next part, but what I will do is I will get these guys in the middle here. I'm going to just take direct yellow first, and I'm going to paint it pure yellow. Everything in the background should be dry. I was trying to give it plenty of time to get dry in the background before I started painting this because I didn't want it to mix in. So now I'm painting it yellow. Okay. Now at the bottom of these things, there's kind of a, oh, that's still wet. I just accidentally put the side of my finger in this leaf here that I was demonstrating earlier. We're going to do kind of a, it's going to look like it has two pieces coming from it. Like at the bottom, like a little bit like grasses. I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see these. I just want to get them in there first. And this is where the yellow comes into the flower a little bit. So I'm going to hold these up so you can see. So see how I've got the yellow coming off in these different directions. And actually, this one here, I kind of don't like the placement of that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to erase using watercolor. It's hard to do. It's not complete. But you just get some water on it. And put your paper towel directly on it. Now you have to be careful because look what happened to my paper towel. I accidentally hit these leaves. So it picked up some of that. So you just want to be careful of how you're applying that. As if to demonstrate, let Miss Sarah mess up to show you what could happen. It wasn't intentional, y'all. That was an accident. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I want my yellow to come a little bit towards the middle. So that's why I erased that. is I wanted to actually come more towards the middle. All right. We're getting ready to start the pink, y'all. I'm so excited. I need to make a little bit more of that green. Try to keep some of your dark green if you have some. Don't wipe it all away. We don't need much, but just a little bit of our dark green. This is actually going to go in the pistil or stamen or whatever it is, whatever this middle thing is called. We're just going to do a little bit of dark green there at the base, a little bit of each of these. We're just going to let it mix with the yellow. Oops, I got a little bit too much on there. That's okay. All right, since I did that, here's what I'm going to do. Clean brush. I'm going to stripe up there. That's not working the way I intended, so I'm drying it off, picking up a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to just try to get some yellow in there. That's better. What'll happen is it might not look great right away, but it will, when it dries, that yellow that I added is going to dry on the right side because I wanted there to be a little bit more yellow in there. It actually looks okay on my screen. Like what you guys are seeing actually looks okay. So, by the way, I did try to figure out how to adjust my colors in, now it's looking okay. For some reason, like what I'm seeing here actually looks pretty accurate to what I'm seeing on, like what you guys are seeing on the screen. So I didn't change anything though, because I couldn't figure out how to do it. I couldn't figure out how to get into my camera settings and shift the colors around. So maybe it's just magical. I don't know. That happens with me in technology. I'm pretty magical with it. My sister makes things break. I make things work. I don't know. And neither one of us exactly know how it happens half the time. But for me, I can just get things to start working again. So we just have like opposite energies, I guess, in that way. Okay. So I am going to just bend this a little bit because my paper has dried a little bit bent. So I'm just bending this just so it's more flat. Okay. And of course my camera's going to have to go through its whole focusing thing again. It's always fun here. Okay. We are now ready to start our petals. So we're pretty close to being done, actually. I mean, not like we're done in like 5 minutes or anything, but we're doing really good on time. So now we're going to actually add our colors. We're going to need 3 colors. Our crimson or red, which I already happen to have some here. Our ultramarine blue or a cool blue. Again, you can use, if you add a little bit of blue to your purple, if you're using one of those pre-made palettes. I tell you what, I'm going to take a really quick break and just try to find that palette because it's around here somewhere. So I can use that as a demo because me just talking about it doesn't seem to be... Okay, so hang on. Let me find it. It's around here somewhere. Oh, I found it. Okay. This is the good thing about being organized is I can't actually find things when I'm looking for them. My room might look a little messy, but I know where everything is, so. Ta-da! Here is a palette. This is like a standard Crayola palette. So the colors that I'm using are the yellow and the red. This blue is very warm. So what I would do is I would make a new blue Let me just get that good and wet there. Okay, I'm just getting a lot of paint here. Because here's the thing, Teacher Margot, if this is like a palette that you're using, we're going to probably be using the ultramarine blue more often. So I would just get like a really good chunk of solid color going over here. Oops, I didn't mean to pick up any of that green. So I'm getting a good chunk of solid color. Because what's happening is that then you can let it dry and you can reuse it next week or the week after, or the next watercolor that we do. So I'm getting a really good chunk of blue going. Just picking up a lot of it on my brush. And then just kind of twisting my brush there so it puts paint down. Now, we will add just ever so slightly a little bit of this purple to it. Let me get some. Well, when I say ever so slightly, we actually need quite a bit of purple. So we'll add purple. If you don't have this purple, you can add a little bit of red. So what I'm doing is I'm bluing this up a little bit. I'm making this an ultramarine blue. And the more I add, the more pigment I add, this is going to become more and more solid to where you almost have your own palette. You're going to see how different this blue looks. Okay. I'm just bringing it all over so it's in one nice little. I'm sweeping it. I'm just rinsing off my brush and then sweeping it over. Now, I'm just going to dab up some of this. I don't know why that's so dark, because it doesn't actually look dark in real life, but okay. That's hard to see on that screen, but it is a different color. I mean, we can even add a little bit more purple to it, really, if you wanted. And then you just let this dry here. You let this dry here, and you can continue to use it week after week as your new blue on your palette. That's a pretty good ultramarine blue right there. That's nice. So you just kind of move it over, and there you go. You've got an ultramarine blue along with, and if you want to look at these side by side, look at that. Look at the difference in those two blues. This is not purple, it's ultramarine blue. That is what it is. It's just a cool blue. You've just added purple to it. I don't think I could have demonstrated cool and warm any better than this, honestly. I'm pretty excited about this demonstration. So thank you, Teacher Margot, for having issues with your color, because that allowed me to make this demonstration. This is so thick right here with paint that you'll be able to use that. So just keep working at that. Keep adding some blue, adding some purple, adding some blue, adding some purple, to where it gets so thick that now you've got your own separate little palette of paint, and it will just dry like that. So there you go. So I'm going to let this dry over to the side. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to do that demonstration. Okay. All right, now we are going to do, oh, you were saying thank me. Okay, haha, we could go back and forth. Thank you. No, thank you. All right, y'all. Ultramarine blue, the crimson, phthalo crimson, which is our red. So our red, our cool blue, and we're going to be using a little bit of the cadmium yellow. And that's to make our crimson a little more on the orangish side. So we're going to be doing both a cooler red and a warmer red. So now we get to do a demonstration of cool and warm reds. This is the most exciting class ever because I hadn't planned this, guys. I did not plan it. Okay. So, oh, that's so funny. That reminds me of a joke. I'll tell you the joke. Hang on. I have to construct it in my mind because it reminds me of the joke, but I don't remember the I remember the punchline. I don't remember how the joke goes. Oh, something along the lines of, why are solar systems so good at throwing parties? Because they really know how to plan it. What? Yeah. I did say it. Okay. So, we're going to start with our general, and then we're going to move to detail. So, keep in mind, right now we've got our lily shapes. Some of this is going to be white. Some of it we're not going to paint. So, we don't want to just put paint everywhere. All right, and that's something to keep in mind. But we're going to start with general first. So we're going to mix our phthalo crimson with a touch of ultramarine. Now, I've already done this, and that is this color right here. This is what you get when you mix the crimson with a little bit of ultramarine. I just happen to have this color. And I don't even remember what we painted. The mailbox. Is that the last time I did a watercolor? Was the Valentine's Day. I think maybe. I think that was. Wow. It's been a while since we've done a watercolor. Well then. Well, I'm sure glad we're doing it. Because I love watercolor. Okay. I'm going to go ahead while that's like mixing and marinating there. I'm going to get my red wet. Because I'm going to be using you. Don't get too excited about staying the color that you are. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and add a little bit of our crimson directly to, or like this new color that we made here. We're going to start on this petal just because I had to start somewhere. Now, I'm going to go along the outside, but I'm not going to go all the way to the tip here. I'm going to just like bring my color up along the side of the petal. Then I'm going to come up the middle and do like kind of a spike in the middle there. And then I'm going to come up the other side. Now on this side, I'm going to come down into the tip and kind of let it fill, let the color fill there. Okay. Now, I'm going to take pure water and come in these middle spaces and just add a little bit of water in the middle there. So that's just gonna like let things mingle. Let it mingle a little. I am adding a little bit of color here to the bottom because I want that to, I do want my color to go to my outsides. Like that. Okay. I'm going to also put a little bit of just plain water right here. So I just dried off my brush. I just wet it and dried it. Okay. I'm wetting it again, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that color, and now I'm going to skip a petal. So I'm not going to do this one. I'm going to do this one in the back. The reason why is we're giving this time to dry. So we're going to skip a petal, and I'm going to come in and come up along the side just like I did this other one. But I don't go all the way to the top. Come up along this side, and then come up the middle. This gives the structure of the flower. You can add a little bit more of the pinkish color. Okay, I'm going to rinse it off. Make sure it's good. And now I'm going to take pure water and do the same thing, just like some water right here in the middle. Now the water is going to drip down into different places, and that's okay. We want that to happen. We want it to mix, because what it's going to do then is it's going to do the mixing for us, so we don't have to. Like that. All right, now we're going to skip, and we're going to do this one. So this one is going to be very similar. We're going to come along the side here. Now this one, I'm going to go ahead and come all the way to the top. Come around the outside. Okay. And guess what? Come up the middle. How about that? That one I'm going to let it go ahead and come all the way to the top. This creates the structure of our petal. Because you think about lily petals have like kind of two humps sort of that meet in the middle. So the middle is going to be a little bit darker, and the edges are going to be a little bit darker because they're facing away. The part that's going to be lighter is in the middle. So what we're doing is we're creating that middle and outsides, and then we're letting the water do the work for us on the inside. But you need to do it while it's wet, and mine I let it dry just a little bit. So here's what I'm going to do. Hello, welcome to the stream. All right, so I am adding just a little bit of the pink down here at the bottom, and that's going to let it blend up into that in that water that I just put down, because my water was already dry in parts. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to wet this just a little bit because I don't like the line that the harsh line that it made. So I'm wetting it just a little bit with my brush, just pure water. And just kind of moving that around. And what that does is it allows that to move around a little bit. Okay. So I'm holding that up so you can see it, because there's quite a bit of water on there, so it's very shiny. See, it's not even wanting to get into, just like move into there already. It's like I gotta, you know, gotta tell everything what to do. All right. So now this should be dry and this should be not dry. It's not dry yet, so we can't do that yet. Well, okay. So this one, we're only going to be putting stuff in the middle. So we can go ahead and do this one. So you just kind of go around the top edge. It's going to come down the middle like that. Yes, welcome to the stream, mocap. Thank you for joining us. Are you by any chance an artist, or are you wanting to be an artist? Welcome either way. Even if you just want to watch for a little bit, that's fine too. Since you're new to the stream, I just want to point out, I've got, if you look at the bottom left-hand side of my screen here, I've got a Discord server, and you are invited to join. There's also a link down at the bottom. If you look, I've got buttons for like my Twitter and my Facebook and something else. I don't know. I've got buttons for a lot of things. Schedule. There is a button for Discord, and that will take you over there. That's where I keep the reference photo for what we're doing. And that's also where we all go and share our artwork when we're done. And I'll be pulling that up at the end of the stream. So you'll get to see that in action. But you're welcome to join. So what I'm doing is, I didn't want this to be quite such a harsh line. So I'm coming in and just squiggling the edges here. And I might actually add a little bit more color. So all I'm doing is where the water is there, I'm just touching my my paint to it, and it will actually take care of it for you. Okay. All right, so since we're waiting for this to dry, what I suggest is I think we should go ahead and move to other flowers. So we're going to come down here. And I'm going to do, let's see, we'll start with this back flower here. So this one, I'm going to do the same thing that we were doing before. We've got our top. There's a little bit back here behind this guy here. Now this time we're going to come up just a little bit in the middle. Not a lot, just a little. I'm going to get some clean water. Come in on the inside, just like we did before. Now, Teacher Margot, I know you have to go, but thank you very much for joining the stream today and for helping me come up with some great demonstrations. And I hope to see, you can go ahead, if you want to go ahead and upload what you have so far, that would be great. So then I have something to talk about in Discord when I show at the end. But we'll talk about the fact that knowing that you're going to finish, that you're going to continue. So I'd love to see what you have so far. If you want to go ahead and upload that. And then I will be talking to you later. So thank you again for joining the stream. Okay. So we're going to skip. We're going to skip this one. and go to this one in the back. The reason again that we're skipping is because we don't want, since this is very wet, we don't want to put something wet right next to it because they will blend together. So I'm coming all the way down to the side here. Now on this side, I'm not going to come up very far. I'm just going to come up to about here. But I am going to take this and come all the way down my middle. Ah, awesome. Thank you so much, Teacher Margot. Talk to you later. Enjoy your classes as well. Teacher Margot is a teacher, and that's what she's getting ready to go do, is she's getting ready to go stream her own classes. Thank you for joining me. All right, so I'm getting some pink down here. Now we're going to add our water, just like we did before. I'm still leaving some white areas, so I'm not completely adding water everywhere, especially since my water is like kind of a bluish color, so I don't want it to be everywhere. It will tint. Okay, we're going to skip this one and do this guy back here. So this one is a little bit, if you look at the reference photo, it's a little bit of a fan. It looks like a fan. So I'm going to come along the sides like I did and come up the middle. So we're still creating our flower structure. But when we add the water, I'm going to mix it a little bit with the paint, because it really like fans out quite a lot. Like that. Okay, now I'm going to work on this right here, this guy. This is going to be pretty simple. He's not open yet. So we're just going to do 3 strips. 1, 2, 3. Same deal. Oops. A little bit more water than I wanted, but same deal. Get that clear water in the middle. Okay. Now we can go work on this flower again, because we can now work on, everything should be pretty dry. This one's not as dry as I would like it. Also note that if you've got a lot of water and you start tilting things, water's going to start going places. And sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes you want that. Like I do that as a technique in my skies, especially like when I want it to look really interesting and cloudy. But today, let's see. Well, I should be able to go ahead and start this one. I should be able to start this guy here. So what we're going to do, go up the side. This is exactly what we're doing. This isn't changing. The technique's not changing any. We're going up the side, going up the middle, and then going up the other side. This one is like a little bit of like a loop. It connects. And actually this guy here is a little, okay. So what do we do now? Add our pure water in the middle. And that gets them to connect in interesting and meaningful ways. Just like people. We all connect. Like we're connecting now as artists. Now you're going to see that as it dries, it starts doing interesting things. Like look how this dried darker around the edges. We're going to come in and do something about that. Normally I like that and I want it to dry like that. But today we are going to actually play with that a little bit. Okay, we're going to do this one next. So let's see. I'm going to kind of color it all in down here. And it's going to come up to about right here. On the other side, it's going to also not come up very far because the middle on this one is the one that's going to come up the farthest. Okay, so in the middle, we're going to come up all the way to the top. And I'm going to actually do some pink here at the top. Like that. Get our water. Our water's going to go on this side only. Well, not only, but I'm not going to put as much on the other side. I'm only going to do it down here at the bottom. Try not to get into your yellow too much because I've got some yellow there. All right. I want this to come around just a little bit more. So I'm just teasing the edges. If you just tease at the edges with a little bit of water, that will, you can reconstitute it and make it wet again. So tease the edges. If you have any questions, please feel free. Do not hesitate to ask. Okay, so now let's work on this one. We're getting there, guys. We're doing really great. So I'm going to do this petal first. I'm going to go ahead and come right up the middle. That wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be. Come down the side. And I'm going to actually make this pretty dark on this side. I think, and a lot of it too. I think that's what I want to do. So let's add our wet bits to the middle here. And then I'm going to really blend it so that, yes, the middle is going to be lighter, but it's still going to be pretty pink. There we go. I like that. All right, 2 more. So this one is pink at the top. It's going to come down the middle, only slightly on the sides. In the middle here, I'm going to have a little bit of squiggly at the bottom, meaning that I'm just letting my brush kind of, you know, that's the squiggly. That's the sound of squiggly, just like that. And get my plain water and mix it right there at the edge there. All right, last petal we're going to do up here. I'm going to come up the side of this little yellow bit here that we put. The side of here, and I'm going to actually fill this in a little here at the bottom. Oops. And this did mix with this a little bit, and that's okay. And then come up the side, but we're going to meet in the middle here. Okay. Pick up our plain water. Blend that. Okay. So far so good. I've got all my shapes down. Everything's nice. The thing is that we do have shadows and highlights. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix a little bit of our red with yellow. I've already done that here. I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me just make sure. See if that gets any oranger. Well, we could go a little oranger. We want it to be a pretty, not orange, but, you know, a red orange. So we're going to take this, and in some of our lighter areas, we're going to put a little bit of this color. So that's what is going to go right here. And it's going to blend with the background color. And if you want to put a little water there, you can. Pick up a little bit of this color. And I'm just putting it right in the middle because that's where our highlights are. And just let that blend a little bit. I'm going to highlight here, maybe one here, maybe even a little bit out here. Now this is a little bit more paint than I wanted to be here. So let's see what I can do about that. Touching at my edges so they're not quite so stark. There we go. Let's see. I guess I would have a little bit of highlight here. Blend it. Some highlight right here in the middle. And I'm using my paper towel to like just dry my brush. And then I'm coming in and kind of scooping everything together, and that will blend it. And then this last bit, there's highlight right here. And see, it's still a little wet, so it's going to blend a little, and that's beautiful. That's what we want. And then I want it to come down the middle here. And I'm just going to blend it out just a tiny bit. Let's see. I do want this to come down in here a little bit more. Like, I think I want my petals to kind of meet in the back there. So all I'm doing is just teasing my edges and pushing them up to where they touch. There we go. All right, now we got to do some down here. There isn't going to really be a whole lot here on the I'm actually taking a little bit more of the solid, the bluish red that we made earlier, and just putting some more of that in here. Actually, I just realized I didn't put any green on the stem, so I'm going to do that too while I'm here. Maybe a tiny bit of yellow on the stem. Okay, now we need to get some of our highlights down here. So we're going to pick up a little bit of our red. We've got highlights coming down the middle just a little bit here, just like we did on this flower. And just a tiny bit up here. Maybe a little in the middle here and on the side. I had to make some more. Let's see. So there's like a little bit of highlight there. I'm drying off my brush. And I'm going to blend that. This is the part that you get to play around with. You don't even have to put these highlights in here. I'm doing this because I think it looks interesting to have these layers of colors. But you don't even have to do that. Like, I'm going to attempt to do this highlight again here because I think I wiped some of it off. But you don't even need to add this if you don't want. I just think it makes it look more interesting. I'm blending. Okay. One more petal. Well, no, I didn't do anything with that one. We do need to do something with that one. So 2 more petals. So this one, I'm going to bring that there. And a little bit of highlight there. Dried it off. Blending again. Okay, last petal, that's this guy back here, and I am just going to do some general kind of reddish pink right in the middle there. And that's it. Not for the flower, that's it for that section. I mean for what we're doing there. Okay. Now, something that we need to do is we need to add, lilies have those little specks on them, right? So we need to add that, and we need to add our stamen. Because I'm pretty sure, I'm going to have to look this up, guys, because for some reason I'm just not remembering the terms correctly. But one is the pistil, one is the stamen, and I think this might be the pistil. Because I think there was a mnemonic device that I used to remember that. I cannot share that on here because it's a little lewd, but I'm pretty sure that's how I remembered it. So, okay. Let's do this. So now we're going to add the details of our paintings. The problem is we need it to dry. Now, the great thing about watercolor, you can see how mine's still shiny in parts. That means it's not dry. So kind of, you can like move it up and down. You can use a hairdryer. I do not recommend it though. For watercolor, for acrylic, hairdryers are fantastic. For watercolor, not as fantastic. And the reason why is because you want there to be a little bit of serendipity to your painting. You want it to have some flow to it. If you dry it with a hairdryer, it's going to dry exactly the way it looks, and there's not any more movement of the water after that. But if you let it kind of move around, like while you're painting other things and stuff, that it just makes it more interesting. We'll just say that. This petal right here is bugging me. I haven't decided what I want to do with it yet. I think maybe I'm just going to get some water and tease the edges. Remember I told you guys you can tease the edges? Get it wet again. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so what I did is I teased the edges, and I let it kind of... Okay. Space Astronomy Kid 67. Hi, you are painting right now an Ireland landscape. Oh my goodness, Ireland is beautiful. I would love to see that. If you are willing to share with us, you're welcome to join my Discord server. The address is in the bottom left-hand corner of my page right there. But also there's a link down at the bottom, a button. You can push the button for Discord. That is an invite to the server. You can go over there and join, and you can upload pictures. I've had different artists actually upload their work that's not necessarily related to what I'm doing, because I love to see other artists' work. So if you're willing to share, I would love to see your Ireland painting. And I love landscapes. Now, is it a watercolor or is it acrylic, oil? Like what is your medium that you're using? Okay. What we're going to do... very cool. Well, congratulations, because I've never been to Ireland myself, but I've heard amazing things. I've heard it's very beautiful. So I'm excited for you and your family. That's going to be an awesome trip. Okay, so to make our spots, what we're going to do is we're going to mix our red, a little bit of our red, and since this is just a little yellowed up red, it's fine to use that. And our burnt umber, or our brown. So I'm wetting my brown. And then I'm going to mix that in there. And what we're going to get is a very deep red. It's going to be like a blood red almost. It does on the screen. Man, that really looks like blood. Yeah. Okay. So... here's what we're going to do. So we've got anthers. Anthers. That's what those are called. My lesson plan actually told me. Anthers are the little things that come up in the middle of the flower. So there's a good chance I was wrong on the other parts of the flower. That's okay. This isn't a science class. It's a painting class. But I will make sure to put that information out on my Discord so that I'm not completely wrong. Okay, so our tiger spots, I'm going to start with this top flower because this flower is still drying in parts. Barely, that wasn't even barely. That's like way too big. Okay, but I'm going to let it go because I'm going to make it one of my anthers. The anther is like kind of an elongated thing. So I guess I'm making my anthers first rather than my spots because, well, that's just the way it worked. So I'm doing all these like little dashes. And those are my anthers. Well, man, I wonder why oh, well, this is not a good situation. This was too wet. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm taking my paper towel and very gently picking up that color I just put down. Because I do not want my anthers to spread out. Okay. So I'm barely touching my paint. This one was dry, so we should be able to put spots on there. So I'm just going to put little tiny spots. Little tiny spots. Space Astronomy Kid, if you are still on, I'm going to be doing on St. Patrick's Day. Now, you won't probably be able to do the live stream, depending, I don't know how old you are, but if you're in school, you may not be able to go to watch the live stream. But I'm going to be doing a pot of shamrocks for St. Patrick's Day as my, I like to do themed painting. So that will be for that day. So you're welcome to join us and paint some shamrocks. It'll be pretty cool. Okay. Let's see if I have another one that's dry. Maybe this one. It's like barely going down. There we go. It's okay if they're a little lighter. In fact, I think that looks more natural. Like it's receding. Man, this one anther's kind of going nuts. I'm going to have to do something about that. So I'm just doing little dots. There doesn't need to be a ton of them. We just want to indicate that there are some there. And in fact, these dots here in the back are a little bit more than I want. I'm going to pick up some of that color. So what I do is I put a dry brush to it. Hello, fairy lights. My fairy lights just came on in the back. I put a dry brush to it and dot my paper towel. And that's picking up some of this color. So that these are a little bit lighter. I just felt like they were just a tiny bit too dark. So I'm just touching all of my little dots. There we go. That's better. Okay. But I need to not mess with things. Okay, let's get a little bit more. Let's do some of our other ones. Dot, dot. And it's okay that it's blending with the back. I don't mind these because these are my dots. These are not my anthers. These are a little darker than I want, so I'm going to pick some of it up and dab it on my paper towel. We are almost done now. This is pretty much the last thing we're going to be doing, so. All right, let's go ahead, see if everything's dry down here. You know what? I think this was not there. I think that's like a drop of water. So we are going to just blend that to the background. Like that. Okay. Do our dots down at the bottom. Dot, dot, dot. And I'm just kind of putting them a little randomly. There's no rhyme or reason to like how I'm doing them. I am trying to kind of follow the shape of the flower that we did earlier. Let's see. This is a little bit of the, it's starting to look like an Irish landscape. That is awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Depending on what medium you're using, you know, artwork has a tendency to not look like what you want it to look like in the in-between stages. So you just have to learn to be patient and stick with it to the end, because it usually looks a lot better at the end than it did in the middle or the beginning. That's what I've learned about art, is that the middle stages aren't very fun. You have to just learn to love the process, I guess. But I'm glad it's starting to look like your landscape that you want. All right, so almost all of these are a little darker than I want. So doing the trick, I'm going to start with this one. And they're a little dry. So I'll show you what to do if it dries on there and it's darker than you want it. I'm going to show you how to get that up. Just went on a little too long before getting to them. So these last ones should be fine because I just put them down. Yep, and they're picking up pretty easily. Watercolor, okay. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, especially with landscapes, you want to take your time. That's fantastic though. A watercolor landscape is beautiful. All right, so here's what you do. You get a little bit of water on your brush and put water on your dots, like directly on your dots, and let it sit there for a second. These were all my dots that were a little bit too dark, but they were dry. So I'm putting water directly on my dots, but I am not doing anything with them yet. I'm letting the water soak into them. All right, I'm going to dry off my brush and then go, and it should pick it up, and it is. Make it a little lighter. All it did was kind of reconstitute that paint and make it so that it's wet again. I love watercolor. You can do so much with it. I am so glad you're patient. That is the key to being an artist. Because if you're impatient as an artist, you're going to find yourself very frustrated a lot. I think a good portion of art is about being patient. So that's a really good quality to have. Okay, now I had this situation here. My anthers. Remember my anthers. So that one kind of got out of hand, and he started, like, you know, I don't know, wandering over to other parts of the painting I don't want him to be in. This anther disappeared into the background, so I just have to touch him up with a little bit more paint. So he's darker. Hello. All my anthers are male, apparently. I don't know if that's how it works in real life, but I'm probably wrong on that again. I'm not wrong often, but when I am, I'm like really wrong. It's like, what? Okay, so this is dry now. So I get these other anthers in here. I need to reconstitute this color because it just dried. I went too long. That kind of blood red. Okay. We're going to get our anthers done down here. And we don't need to do stems to the anthers because it looks like there are stems. Like watercolor doesn't need that. It does not require that. So all my anthers are kind of in the background here. Got another little guy here. And I'm going to have one that comes across my, I guess that's a stamen now. Now I'm really questioning my terminology here. If I have any plant lovers on the stream, I would love to know what the correct term for these plant parts are. Okay. I am pretty happy with the way this looks. Now, because I left some of my white parts, it makes it look more like edges. You can come in if you want to make them look even more like edges. And you can come in and do, like, I've got a little bit of that dark green left. And you just kind of come in right up to it. Like that. And then you are going to tease that into the painting, because you don't want it to be like this super stark line, because that would look weird. So you can do that. Let's see, what else? Maybe a little bit of green down here. Like right at the base of that thing that I clearly don't know the name of. But overall, I'm going to probably put a little bit of yellow in here. What I'm doing here is I put the yellow in there, then I got some pure water, and I'm just going in and swishing my brush around. I'm teasing it, but what that's doing is it's creating, I'm doing it at the bottom too. And it's going to create a very leafy looking shape. Like that. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. All right, so here's what we're going to do. What I always do at the end of my streams, I do a little critique. If you have been working along with me in the stream, I encourage you to take a picture and upload it to Discord. So I'm going to talk about mine first, and then I'm going to go over to Discord, and we'll talk about whoever has uploaded their the paintings for today that we did. So I'm going to talk about mine. There is one thing that's bothering me, so I'm just going to fix it right now. This edge here, I don't know why, but it dried darker. I don't like it. So I'm teasing the edge so that it'll be a little bit lighter. This dried funky too. If something dries funky, you don't like the way it looks, you just come in and you tease wherever the edge is that it dried, and you can just blend it right into the background. It's the great thing about watercolor. Reconstitute. Reconstitute. Okay. So looking at mine, what we were going for is we were going for kind of an airy, watercolory feel of lilies. I want it to be realistic, but at the same time, I want it to be more flowy, and in the nature of watercolor is that it's going to look kind of haphazard, you know, like everything's going around. This petal right here is bugging me a little bit. I'm probably going to come in and like tease some of these edges and maybe bring my pink out a little bit so that it's not quite as white. But I think overall, my painting was effective. The way I do critiques, I talk about one thing that's effective and one thing that's ineffective that I can change for next time or add to. I think what is effective is the way I layered my color, especially in the leaves. I'm really liking these leaves. But I think what's ineffective is the way my edges dried. So all I need to do is take a little bit of water, go tease the edges, and that will take care of some of that. But overall, I would say it's a pretty effective painting. It's watercolor, so you know it's not supposed to be perfect. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I have worked it out so that I can bring up my Discord channel on the stream. So we're going to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring it up. Here we go. So here's the reference photo. This is what the reference photo looks like here. Now, Teacher Margot, who was there earlier, she had to go teach her own stream. So she wasn't able to, I'm going to pull that up. She wasn't able to finish, so she only got part of it done. So what we're mostly looking at for her is we're looking at the background and the leaves, because that's what she was able to get to. She was able to start the petals, because remember I skipped every other one, but she wasn't able to finish those. So let's take a look at what she's got here. So overall, the background is very effective. What I would probably, up at the top, if you look at the top left, let's see, you can see my mouse. The top left up here is a little choppy, so I'd probably add a little bit more water. And maybe just let that kind of move around a little bit more. But honestly, it actually looks okay the way it is. I don't know if you need to do that. It's maybe just this line right here that's bugging me a little bit. So maybe just smoothing that out with a little bit of water. Okay, leaves. Her leaves are very effective. In fact, this one here is a little funky. So maybe we can... like clear up this edge a little bit, like just by adding a little bit of dark green on this side, and that will make that leaf come out. I don't see very many background leaves. Like remember here, I'm going to show you mine. If you look at mine, remember I've got some leaves like going on in the background, you know, where they were much lighter. But Teacher Margot mentioned that she had some trouble with her color. Notice that this is a little bit more of a blue-green. She had to go in and remix her color because the blue that's in her palette, she has this kind of watercolor palette. So she has a palette like this. So her blue was very warm. If you look here, this is what the blue she has. This is the blue I had her mix. It's a much cooler blue. That's what gave us that kind of olive green. So she had to remix her color. So that's probably why she doesn't have those background leaves. So that would be my main suggestion, is going in and doing some lighter leaves in the background. I do see a few. So I think she started doing that. But her leaves are very effective. I like how it's lighter in the middle and it's dried out to the edges like that. I think that looks really great. Now, her petals that she started on look fantastic. That she did the sides, the middle, and the other side, just like that. Some of these lines here probably are going to need to be blended. But again, because she didn't get to finish the class with us, then those might have been blended when we put in that more orange red. So overall, I think that's fantastic. It looks like that's all I've got on the Discord channel today. So again, you're welcome, if you follow along with me, you're welcome to join my Discord and upload your own paintings or drawings. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly what we did. It could be your own. I would love to see Space Astronomy Kid. I would really like to see your Ireland painting. So hopefully you will do that. Well, so we're done for today. Next week, Space Astronomy Kid, you said something. In my painting, the green grass I did looks very green. Well, so if you want to tone that down a little bit, you can add a little bit of brown, or if you want to tone it down less, believe it or not, add just a tiny bit of red. Little bit of red to your green will actually tone it down a little bit and bring that color to more like a slightly more olive color. But that's how you would take care of that. If you didn't want your green grass to be quite so like bright, you know, day glow green. Then you just tone it down with a tiny, tiny bit of red. Okay, so my next stream will be Tuesday. It's a drawing stream. It is at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is about 7 p.m. Universal Coordinated Time. And, oh, no, it's not, because Daylight Savings starts this Sunday. So that will actually be 8 p.m., I think, UTC. So I will need to change that. But, yes, so it's going to be -6 UTC, I think. Anyway, it's 2 p.m. Eastern Time, if you can figure out from there. We're going to be doing a study of an eye. So this week we studied flowers. Next week we're going to actually study eyes and portrait. And I'm very excited about next Friday's painting, because we are going to be painting the very famous Vermeer painting, Girl with the Pearl Earring. So I'm excited. I haven't done that one yet. So that will be an acrylic painting. Okay, thank you so much for joining my stream. I appreciate you sticking with me as we try to figure out this particular watercolor. I hope to see you on Tuesday. Have a fantastic